Statistics suggest that only about 13% of family firms survive past the third generation. Now, there is some discussion in academic circles about whether that is exactly the right number, but let's leave that aside for now. While all types of companies can fail, the question for family firms is, with their cross-generational long-term perspective, how to sustain the family firm over time. One way to think about this problem is to ensure that family firms have the right governance mechanisms to survive. What is governance? Let us start with a simple definition. Governance is the rules by which leaders lead. In other words, how to design a structure with checks and balances that ensures the best possible decisions. Now, while family firms may often be seen as being held together by love, I am going to argue that as they mature, they need to also love rules. What type of governance do family firms need? Well, let me start with an analogy. What you can see on this slide is a picture of Tokyo Station. Have you ever been there? I did, and it was amazing. The number of people, the punctuality, wow. Fast trains, slow trains, metro lines, everything converges here. Tokyo Station sees more than 3,000 trains and 500,000 passengers a day. And that's just the rail part, not even counting the Tokyo Metro. Somehow, this public transport system doesn't ever seem to break down. Rarely is any of those 3,000 trains late. And to run this system to perfection, like the Japanese do, you need lots of very detailed rules for everyone. Take, for instance, these cleaners, a phenomenon known as the 7-minute miracle. There's a very interesting YouTube video on this, showing how they thoroughly clean the Shinkansen train in 7 minutes. The procedure is specified for every single second, and it's like watching a modern dance choreography. Each and every person in this station knows what decisions they can and cannot take. The complexity is high, and therefore the system operates with many rules and standards. And it works. Now, this is totally different from this station here, a coal mine rail terminal in Indonesia. If you have 1 or maybe 2 cargo trains a day, there really is no need for a 7-minute miracle. And you can just, loiter around like these guys here and do some checks. With just a few trains a day, you may not need the same level of explicit rules. You can probably figure it out without having too many well-defined responsibilities. So, governance looks quite different depending on whether the underlying system is simple, like the coal rail terminal, or complex, like Tokyo Station. And in my mind, governance needs to be proportional. Now, let us take another step. In family firms, we have 2 types of systems running simultaneously, namely the family and the business. And earlier we already saw that the magic of bringing those together is what makes family firms so fantastic. Now, each of these underlying systems, the family and the business, can be either complex or simple. And if we take these assumptions, it yields a very useful 2x2 matrix, which can give us a typology of family firms. Let us unpack this typology a little bit further. The first type is a simple family with a simple business. An example is Hoshi Ryokan from Japan, one of the world's oldest family firms, founded in the year 718. So that's a cool 1,300-year history. It has remained simple by focusing on just one hotel with, of course, a hot spring, and by passing the leadership and ownership to just one person, the eldest son. In this manner, successors' roles are clear and unchallenged. Siblings don't get involved, and the family commitment and heritage can contribute to the business success. the model worked well to keep the business in the family for 46 generations, although the absence of a son or a radical change in the industry may require adaptation, as the family history illustrates. Let's look at the second type. This is a simple business with a complex family. Hiep Ho, a well-known property group from Singapore, is an example of how things can become overly messy without proper family rules. The patriarch, Teo Guan Seng, who founded Hiep Ho in 1983, kept 3 families at the same time, and he tried to achieve cohesion by letting everyone share in his wealth. However, family squabbles, a divorce, and feuding children forced him to dismantle his holding company, and he even left his own firm. Instead of bonding the family together by sharing his love and wealth, Teo achieved precisely the opposite. It is indeed a sad case of too much love and too little rules. Our third type is a complex business with a simple family. Meet Mr. Zong over here. Described as a chain-smoking and tea-drinking boss in his 70s, he presides over one of China's largest beverage firms, founded by him in 1987 in Hangzhou. Wahaha's rise was meteoric. In just a few decades, he went from selling nutrients for kids to commanding 30,000 employees. Zong, like many Chinese founders, has just one child, a daughter called Kelly. How can Kelly, who was educated in the US and is reported by the media to have a very different management style, take over this enormous company? Apparently, even Mr. Zong is not so sure himself, as he frequently criticized his daughter in public. Clearly, this family business is in need of professional talent that can help revive its innovation and success. Now, our last type is the most difficult to run. A complex business with a complex family. The Hyundai Group from Korea is a good example of both a sprawling group and a multifaceted family. Founded by Chung Yu-young, the group was informally split up among his brothers and sons after his demise in 2001. However, the Hyundai firms were interconnected in a convoluted cross-shareholding pattern, which is not uncommon in Korea. With 3 generations in the family business, the diverse members could find little common ground. And moreover, some of the sons had passed away and were replaced by a widow. Business complexity further spurred rivalries and led to a lack of clarity on who calls the shots in what firm. Hyundai Merchant Marine, a large global shipping company, which you see in this slide, became a highly contested battleground for the different family factions, painfully illustrating how important it is to keep a check on complexity. Now, let us bring all these examples together in a typology. Corporate governance refers to the relationships between shareholders, the board, and the management, and in a slightly more complex definition, I quote, provides the structure through which the objectives of the company are set, the means of attaining those objectives, and how performance is monitored, unquote, according to the OECD. Family governance, similarly, refers to the relationships between family members, family business owners, and family business leaders, which also need a structure, an objective, and a mechanism to achieve and monitor it. Accordingly, family businesses need parallel governance to be successful. Now, the problem is that not all families face the same types of governance and business challenges. Some businesses grow rapidly without managerial talent available inside the family, as in the example of Wahaha. In others, the number of family members outgrows the ability of the business to accommodate their diverse interests without descending into conflict, as we saw in the example of Hiep Ho. Those family firms with greater business complexity would need more sophisticated corporate governance. And those with complex families would need more sophisticated family governance. Families that are in the upper right-hand quadrant, like Hyundai, need both to remain viable. Now, so far, we had created a typology assuming that family firms can be positioned along the two axes. Now, if things go well, families expand and businesses grow too, eventually taking the family business into more complex territory. The problem with many family firms here in Asia is that often growth has been very fast due to the economic history of the region. But the corporate governance is still lagging far behind. Depending on how long ago it was founded and how many children the founder had, these families also can get pretty complex, especially in countries like India, where the birth rates are higher. And this is even worse if we're talking about hybrid families or very large ones, as we can see in some of the Chaebol families or other East Asian families. Thus, families have a tendency to move from simple to complex, with governance systems lagging far behind too. Now, this is what I call the governance gap. In the emerging markets of Asia, many family firms are moving into the complex business complex family quadrant without having mature governance mechanisms to control them. Examples of mature families that are older, such as Merck from Germany, show that it is possible to control a sizable business with dozens of owners from different family branches. The Merck family managed this by creating mature parallel governance systems for the business and for the family and linking them together. We will look into the details of how to set up your family governance in another class. Now, this 2x2 model should give you a tool to classify family firms according to their complexity of the business and the family, and accordingly think about what levels of corporate and family governance these businesses need. But we also must realize that history and context matters. If we truly want to understand the trajectories of the family businesses in Asia, shown by the arrow in my earlier slide, we need to understand how economies evolved, how families grow, and how they live and work together. Doing so explains differences across countries, and it can also help us to predict what step is next needed in terms of family governance needs. So personally, my goal, if I work as an advisor to a family, is to predict the next step, to predict the next needs, and not merely to support them with today's issues. Let's wrap up. I started out by saying that only about 13% of family firms is thought to survive the third generation. Yet, family firms can beat the odds as long as they apply the right type and level of governance, be it family governance or business governance or both. I hope the model I presented in this class is useful as you assess the various types of family firms you are working in or with. Thank you for watching.